No.
Do you hear me? Yeah, okay.
Einen wunderschönen guten Abend. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's Tuesday. It's 7 o'clock, and you are with us. That's right. That's the right decision. Today, we are very pleased to have a special guest. After we enjoyed having Bob Stutz, Esteban Kolsky, and a lot of other chaps around the SAP ecosystem, it's our honor and our pleasure to have Kai Stubane with us. And Kai is in the role now of head of sales in SAP customer experience for Middle and Eastern Europe. And his typical question, if you go to his LinkedIn profile, is, are you ready for the age of customer? So, Kai, what is your recommendation, aside of your self-introduction, how to be prepared for the age of the customer?
Yeah, how to be prepared for the age of the customer. I mean, this is obviously going to our SAP customers. Are you ready to be prepared for the age of your customers, right? So everyone might have a different perception on that one. But I think that's a major question as we see the whole market turning into a customer-centric market. And that's for me behind the difference. Yeah.
That's a cool one. You have been with SAP for quite a long time, aside of that you have had some other stations in your business lives before. And I'm a bit curious how it developed in the parts I see from being in sailing on a quite professional approach, going then to consultancy, having an own business, and then you fall in love, more or less, with 3 letters, SAP. And since then, it seems to be a happy marriage where you have the opportunity of developing a lot of different roles there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm clearly above the 7 years of being married with SAP, right? And that's a critical time, as we all learned, right? Well, I mean, being with SAP that long, it's for me pretty easy. I'm not coming from the area where SAP is placed, right? That's often obviously an argument. You're from Waldorf, Heidelberg, and it was just going very good for me with SAP, right? I could make my career. There were always new opportunities. So for me, it was a clear path to develop myself and my career, and it's great people to work with, and also great products. So I'm still really fired up for working for SAP. And probably the connect, coming back to a question, Ralph, between my past and what I'm doing today. So I mean, while going to school and then while studying, I was member of the German Olympic sailing team. So I was really sailing 180 days per year, participating to Worlds and European Championships. And I mean, sailing is a very complex sport. I mean, you can take every sport and say, this is why I'm good at business and all this blah, blah. It's probably hard to say what was first, right? The ability of doing a sport kind of good as I was, or was that developed while I was doing that sport, right? I mean, that's probably a question we could also discuss an hour. Generally, we don't have to talk about me that much, don't worry. But what I want to say with that is, I still believe that it helped me a lot in my professional career, because sailing is so complex and that job is so complex. Focusing on stuff, building a team, being authentic, that's something I learned there that helped me a lot in that early time of my life. Well, and then, I mean, to be honest, I was studying with a focus to controlling, right? And then with PwC, I learned that pitching to customers is what I like the most. So I really like to sell projects rather than doing the consulting work. I wouldn't say I was a poor consultant, right? But this was really, that's the part that was really energizing me, right? And still the consulting time helped me, because I still believe if you want to run a role, no matter if it's a manager role or whatever role, you also have to be able to deep dive into a topic. You have to be able to do this, and you still have to do this no matter on what stage you are running, whether you're a manager or senior manager, it doesn't matter. And that's something I really learned with PwC when I was there. Well, and then at CX, I mean, for me, I mean, I was having, when I was studying, that my own web shop. Actually, the reason, and I'm trying to be fast on that, I had an old Volkswagen and one part crashed. It was a Volkswagen Golf, and I went to the Volkswagen store and said, "Gosh, I'm not going to pay $200 for an armrest, right?" And I realized that I'm getting the same armrest in China for $30. And then I was asking that guy, "Can you send me 10? Oh, it's working. I can sell them for $100, right? Getting them for 30, selling them for 100. And then I was building up my own business. And that really helped me because, I mean, I was a student. It was not making me rich, but there was a point in time when I said to my friends, "You don't have to pay my rental fee any longer. I can do this my own." I bought a bike out of this. And running such a business end to end with all the stuff, right, really helped me. And it still helps me to understand what is important to attract customers over an e-commerce shop. What is the differentiation to a marketplace? Why you don't want to sell always through Amazon and eBay, but probably it's also smart to have your own channels and so on, right? And now I can really pick up from that experiences in my current role pretty much. Yeah.
That's really cool, and that describes very vivid how you have the different perceptions when one is reading what you are sharing in the social media focused on LinkedIn. And lately you are sharing a lot of material from different perspectives, always around the CX story, but very focused to how it's in the different roles, such as in trade, in retail, in e-commerce, in machinery, such as in manufacturing. So you look at it from a lot of angles, and I'm quite surprised that now knowing that, how you came there, that it is more clearly for me that you, in the different roles you have had, but you are stable in Hamburg. That's right? So you still live in Hamburg?
Well, I live a bit south of Hamburg, but when I left PwC, I was relocating. At this point in time with PwC, I was in Düsseldorf. And then,
okay.
I moved to my wife because I was the one traveling and she was the one working locally, right? And at the moment, it's not that much with traveling any longer, as we all know, right? But
Yeah,
I still like the area and I still like to live in the north of Germany.
It's funny enough that I was just focusing on the Hamburg thing because for 2 years I have lived in Hamburg as a small boy in the area of Langenhorn. So I'm always curious where people live in the surrounding of Hamburg because the city itself is quite large.
No, that's true. That's true. And I mean, it's still one of the most famous, the most popular cities in Germany, right? It's still very attractive to people to live there, right? So it always helps to mention that. A lot of people that are from Hamburg, it seems to me like people from Hamburg always want to say they are from Hamburg, right? That's one perception I made. Because they're so proud of that, which is good, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, what are Munich and Berlin, right? But from funny cities and nice cities and not so nice cities, what is CX in your eyes?
What is CX? CX is everything that touches customers. But also, I mean, that's a discussion that is evolving, people that are touching customers and how they work with that. I think that's also very important. Yeah.
And how would you define the market then? I mean, everything that touches customer includes, well, non-savory stuff, which is probably nothing that we want in there.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, let's say, I mean, sure, I'm also having my tech classes on working for a tech company, right? From a tech perspective, an ERP system is not touching our customers normally, right? But there are other touch points for software to touch customers, which is part of the customer journey. So that would be probably the closer look to this, right? But I think we have to be that open because what I often see is that when you start, that it's much easier to discuss with customers around how they perceive CX, what the customer journey for them is about, to then see what their definition for CX and also for tech is here, right? Because for a lot of our customers, I mean, there's also a touch point when I'm sending an invoice as SAP to a customer, right? That's also part of the customer journey, but it's coming out of our ERP system, of the finance function, right?
Right. It's some people still don't seem to get that if you have a different view of the customer in your ERP system than you do in your CRM, you've got a serious disconnect that could cause a problem for that customer and therefore cause a problem for you.
Indeed. Customers don't differentiate, right? For them, it's a touch point, and if they don't like it, and it's only dear madam and sir and not the name, right? And so on, also in an invoice, then it doesn't feel good, for example.
So this is just the point where it comes to personalization. So you want a specific personal approach to, if you send the invoice, you want it properly addressed to the proper recipient, right?
Yeah.
With the right numbers.
That comes in nicely as well. So
that does help.
Yeah, absolutely. And it helps in getting the experience positively forward, such as there are no discussions. If the name is proper, the amount is proper, and then the customer, if he has the money, is most willingly to pay. The idea behind this is, how do you describe from your perspective what is needed to do successful customer experience and customer experience management and combine it with human experiences, which came along and come along?
Yeah. I assume that's a question for me, Ralph, right? I'm a shy guy.
This exactly
You are the
in your direction, Kai.
No, all good. I just don't want to be too extroverted here. Yes, I mean, a good customer experience and coming to your question, I mean, you said personalization already, right? And Thomas, we were in advance discussing about that. I mean, I think it is important that the customer sees that on every touch point, the experience is similar, and that on every touch point, all information that me as a customer gave to that entity are used, are leveraged, right? That would be my general remark. So if I already told the company that I'm Mr. Kai Stubane and I'm getting the invoice and it says dear Mr. and Sirs, then it doesn't feel good and it's not personalized, right? To come back to that example, right, Marshall? So I would say that's generally exactly what it means. And I mean, the evolution is obviously that the number of information, of channels, of ways that we interact with customers or where customers expect that we approach them personalized is growing, right? We call it omni-channel or earlier cross-channel or multi-channel experience. So there are so many points coming together and the expectations of the customers are growing. And I think there's a huge chance behind from different perspectives. It can lead to new business models of how I approach my customers, because I can do stuff today that I couldn't do 10 years ago. So new business models can evolve if personalization is good. And they are, we all know them, right? That's a lot of stuff is not new, right? Like taxi business, but then Uber comes along and it's all about customer experience, right? Also a bit about price, but obviously also how easy that is, how fluffy, how good that feels, right? But it also means, from my perspective, that and then we have the security, which at least in the what I see, at least in the DACH region, still is a big topic if you talk to financial institutes and so on. Then we have those borders and that complexity coming in. US Cloud Act on one side. Do I want to have this on a hyperscaler from the US? EU access, GDPR, consent. So all those topics come on top, right? Which the discussion around getting rid of the cookie stuff and so on. So that's also adding complexity and the must of having standards here, right? On top,
You brought up an interesting point there. You used price and CX or customer experience in, well, not only the same sentence, but also very close proximity. How do those fit to each other?
You mean price and CX in which regards, Thomas?
Price and customer experience, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the old discussion, right? I think,
Yep.
I mean, do I want to be the price leader or the quality leader on one hand? I mean, that's very general, right? Probably independent from CX. I mean, probably you saw my post around social about sustainability that map. Ralph, you were commenting on that. I mean, people want to be sustainable, but do they also want to pay more for that, right? So that's what comes to me in mind immediately, right? So there are different dimensions on this, but overall, I would say that if the experience is good, customers are also willing to pay more, right? That's definitely a fact that we see. I mean, those very successful customers that we have, like Douglas, for example, are not known for being price sensitive with their pricing, right? It's a luxury. It's a luxury shop system that they are running in omni-channel ways, right? That's what they are doing, and they're not trying to be the price leader. Yeah? But they are having cool ideas for customer experience, from my perspective, right?
We now could use let's use a few examples. Is Aldi offering a good customer experience? Ryanair.
Yes.
Why?
I would say, I mean, it's my subjective point of view.
It comes to the core of the definition of what customer experience is, right? So that's why I'm glad to hear a yes, but elaborate on it, please.
No, I think that's the leverage that you always have. The more you standardize, right? As Ryanair or Aldi, the better you can also provide services, right? I mean, that's also a fact, right? I think that there is a conjunction of both, as we can see, and then you scale like hell over the mass of products, and that's, I mean, more or less, I would say, the big asset of all those companies that are really focusing on one thing, right? And then price leadership also can become service leadership. Yeah?
I mean, neither of these companies is known for services.
Yeah, I mean, I also had my poor experiences with Ryanair in summer break. I will not talk about them. Well, I mean, once you're running out of the standard path, it's always a pain with, I would say, any bigger company, right? If the chatbot cannot help you any longer, right, and then you want to talk to someone and you wait for an hour, right? That's the downside of standardization, or can be the downside.
And that is not what normally the expectation is, which is expected, such as you still want to talk if you are in trouble to a human being at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Especially if you come to the point where we have our discussions inside between the three of us. Is it emotion or is it solution? Such as, if it's solved properly, I don't need a human. But if it's not properly solved, I need a human as the next instance for the escalation to help me to get it fixed, as I still believe that the human will fix it aside of the bot. Yeah.
Well, we had a counter example. We could talk banks here. Actually, the human hung up on us.
Oh no.
Call center. But anyway, so the expectation is probably a key word there. So let's correlate experience and expectation. So in how far do these go or influence each other?
Well, I think a lot. I mean, that's what I often hear from when we talk to customer. Often Amazon is perceived as a benchmark, right?
Yeah.
Because when Amazon says they will deliver tomorrow, they will deliver tomorrow. And then you go to a small homegrown web shop and it says it's in store, and 2 weeks later you get a mail they cannot deliver before 2 weeks after, right? Just an easy, stupid example probably, right? But I mean, and there is an expectation problem, because Amazon would also tell you if it needs 3 weeks, right? And then you know whether you want to click on it or not. Yeah.
And so we have a different. I would like to share a different example. It is a small shop. It's called Blue So in the Netherlands. They are specialized on IT equipment. We wrote them on a Sunday, ordered an NAS case And we got the first announcement of when it is delivered in the night from Sunday to Monday, and it was on Monday before midday it was delivered, and it was the best price. They had an incredible speed in service, and they answered us already with the first steps on Sunday when we ordered it. So this was an overwhelming positive expectation and experience. So my expectation was, okay, it will come during the next week. But I never, ever expected that they deliver the next day before 12. Yeah, never, ever. So what is now working in me is that if somebody is going for specific IT equipment, I recommend that shop with a lot of fun and a lot of positive emotion. So I agree. Yes, there are a lot of guys and girls which are recommending Amazon and creating it to the benchmark. Same discussion we have with a colleague of yours, Gunnar Sohn, and the boss of the IFH in Cologne and the EHI, they had for the Digital X that roundtable talk. And your colleague said, yeah, well, it is on us as SAP and with our solutions to enable also smaller entities to, from the technology as perspective, to enable them to deliver an as good as service as a larger one. Yeah. So going into that, why is the CDP a helper in getting, let's say, a bit a helping hand towards the size of different organizations?
Yeah, okay. Thanks for unmuting, Thomas. Well, I was afraid. Okay. So Ralph, I mean, and we pre-discussed this. I mean, personalization, right, is a topic anyway, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, what we see, and probably I can make this, can try to answer this a bit practical. Normally, customers we would approach, and I think that's valid for all techno companies, are already having technology. They have something for an e-commerce shop. They have some mass mailing capabilities and so on. And still, as we just discussed with that small shop and so on, if we then prepare ourselves and make our own profile on their web shop, do a customer journey, look on the newsletter, we still think, okay, that's not really personalized. And the reason mainly is, and this is why at least we currently see a big interest in that customer data platform topic, because personalization is not only about sending out a new good marketing newsletter and to simulate looking how you can optimize that channel. It's really touching the whole customer journey, right? As you said, Ralph is your example, but I mean, let's imagine the following: you order something online, you get the stuff, you get your NAS device, and it's broken, it doesn't work, right? And now you offer a service case, everything is working good, and an hour later, you're already getting the first promo mass mailing from those guys, right? You wouldn't like it, but someone has to tell the mass mailing solution to stop sending promo mails because there's a service claim open, right? And just that's just one stupid example, right? But if you know, look how this is driving different systems. Or do you want to send out an invoice alert to that guy if the service claim is open? So how is it integrated to your ERP system, right? And this is where the CDP comes in as a glue, as a layer, right? And
Good one. Yeah.
And what you probably saw, I mean, Bob Stutz was giving an interview to our German SAP user group. It's like the ASUG in the US, it's a DSAG in Germany. And he said, and I think that's important to understand for us, the CDP will evolve over the next few years to a platform, to the basement of our CX portfolio. So the CRM will be an execution layer on top of the CDP, right? And that's a different thinking here, because we believe we need to have to serve that segment of one. We need to have such a platform in between, right? I mean, lead to cash is another example that you really have that journey from the lead onto the cash point. That's what we often try to explain here, right? Yeah.
I love the statement on as you posted that article in advance, which is more or less to your very loyal customers and your most critical fans as well, because the DSAG is known for not being always diplomatic, because they claim that they have a right to complain if there is something to complain, and they are, like, I would say, a little needle in the flesh sometimes when they poke at a point where something is not going right. But I believe that it is fantastically run, that from the good ideas which coming from the user groups worldwide are a high potential of the intent of the customers. They want to stay with their product, they love their product, and they want to get it in the way and the shape that they can make it even work better for them in the ideas they are going for to achieve. So this is, for me, nothing negative. This is a very positive thing, such as if you have a vivid community, and such is paying back, giving them the first step of an overview article which they get exclusively. And
Yeah.
I think that's a cool one. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's, I think, Ralph, what you're saying here is that one size cannot fit all. I mean, when you gave us your NAS example, I started thinking about, you're familiar with the Star Trek character, Mr. Scott, and his reputation as a miracle worker, where he would say that, oh, Captain, it's going to take 3 weeks to fix the engines. And he gets it done in 2 days. And yes, it's wonderful if you can exceed expectations. But if you order a product and you expect it's going to show up next week and it shows up tomorrow, that's wonderful if you're home tomorrow. But if you're going to be traveling for a week and your product is sitting on your porch all that time, they haven't done you a favor. So how do you account for that? I mean, you can't just always deliver the same way to everyone. Is that what the CDP is for? To say this customer needs it delivered at the requested time versus this group of customers will take it as soon as possible? Is that the level of personalization we need to have?
I mean, as you said, Ralph, sorry.
Go ahead.
I mean, okay. I mean, as you said, Marsha, I mean, the CDP shall be is kind of a one-fit-all approach. It should at least bring those informations together in a very fast way, right? So in general, I'm with you. If it should be delivered end of the week, it should be delivered end of the week. And then the question is, where do I get the information as at the e-commerce provider, as a retailer, for example, that it will already be delivered next day? And how do I get this to you, Marshall, because you're traveling, right? But the system would, frankly speaking, bring those informations together. I think this, as I said, this example might be a bit complex because the logic, you know, what the root, the definition would be in the system to say, okay, if I set delivery end of next week, and then it's Monday, then the system would trigger something to either make you aware, hey, it's coming tomorrow. Is that fine for you? Yes, no, right? Or just inform you. This is then the question of how you as an e-commerce, as a retailer want to run that. Yeah.
Such as to get it a personal experience. We meet your needs. If you need it fast or you need it later, then we can do so. And this comes to the point that from the one-to-one marketing to the mass marketing, you have had the interesting discussion also with Björn on the differentiations. And that could be an opportunity, if that's all right, with Tom and you, Kai, and Marshall, that we could use a little intro player we have prepared on the hyper-personalization. If Tom would start it, then we can see it. Elsewise, I'm
Why
happy
do I
to...
need to start it. We need to find it.
Okay.
Wait. Let's say a word about hyper-personalization. These days, hyper-personalization is nearly ubiquitous. To be clear, it is nothing new and it is not a thing. It's a fad. There's nothing hyper about personalization. Why? At the beginning of the millennium, we called it one-to-one marketing. And we realized that we didn't have the technology to address individuals individually and at scale. So we built segments and called it personalization. Now we can scale and needed a word for it. Hyper, that means above. And it's Greek, so great. What comes next? Ultra? That means beyond. It's Latin though. Let's call it what it is. Personalization, perhaps individualization. Let's look at solving the business issue at hand and not chase the next fad. My name is Thomas Wiebernight of the CRM Evangelists.
Thanks for sharing, Tom. This is, let's say, you had that nice slide which you shared with Björn, and Björn had designed where it described a bit in more in another perspective and detail where the differences are. Now, the idea behind this, from my perspective, is to treat customers the way they liked to be treated on the, let's say, on the specific way and on the channel they love to get contacted on. Yeah, that's the magic.
Well, I mean, Thomas, I'm fully with you. Hyper-personalization from my perspective, and I mean, that's something that is being used a lot, right? Also, those guys from ISM, Niels Hafner, they have that trend as called hyper-personalization in their trend radar, right? If you guys know that. I think for me, at least, that's my personal view on it. It should express that this topic is evolving, but it's at the end nothing less than personalization. But I mean, coming back to my example with that service claim and then not getting an invoice and so on. I mean, every smart consultant that can do user exits and build something on top of web shops would say, oh, I can build this, that's no problem, right? So if you look to any stupid singular task you will discuss here, there will be a way to squeeze that together, right? So for me, the differentiator with hyper-personalization and also my understanding what a CDP is the ease of doing it, the ability to have that platform where all relevant sources are plugged in and to have a very no execution layer where you can, without coding, really build those strategies on top that you can say, oh, that's Marshall, as Marshall said, oh, that's important for me. I want to inform my customer if I deliver earlier, right? And then you can just execute on that. You can just do it, right? And that's for me the difference from a technical perspective, yeah. To what we probably could have done already if you look to each case singularly, yeah.
From a technology point of view, purely technology point of view. So what we want to achieve is whether we are a Ryanair or Douglas. Yeah. So price leader to, let's call it experience leader. Yeah. So, well, no, experience leader is a wrong word. To price insensitive leader. Yeah. So what does it take for technologically for either of them to be able to deliver on their promise? In order, we agree that both of them are delivering good experiences in terms of, well, they're up to promise. Yeah? But what does, apart from the CDP, that probably seems to be core to the technical solution, what does it take? what would you advise your customers?
Well, I mean, from those discussions, and I mean, with Douglas, I had discussions like this with other, probably more price-leaning customers as well.
Mhm.
The topics I often see, at least in the omnichannel world and the marketing world, are often the same, right? How do I attract a customer to buy a second time? How do I make sure that customers stay to me, that they don't skip their basket and go to the next vendor and so on? So those topics, I would say more or less the same for both of them, right? So my understanding is, and this is why I like the picture of segment of one a lot, I really think that you are, that those bigger companies and also those smaller companies need to make sure that they really approach each customer as individual as possible. So back from, okay, what is in the newsletter for males and females, to, okay, what is in the newsletter for people living in a city and people, I don't know, living in a village probably, and so on. We could think of so many dimensions here, and then connect this what they bought before. And then, I mean, what we shouldn't underestimate with the CDP approach also is that we can also collect information from virtual profiles. So you start, you see, I don't know, a car on I don't know, on Twitter, right? And then or on any other channel, and you are asked, what is your favorite color, red, blue, green, right? You click on green, and then you go somewhere to the landing page of the vendor, and it's showing you a green car already, and you didn't do anything before, right? So it's heavily customized in the way experience happens. And this is, I would say, the beyond stuff, which can be a differentiator. It shouldn't feel like you have to do a lot to be approached personally by those entities, right? And there's a lot of improvement for those customers, for our customers to say out there to do so. Yeah.
In how far do journeys play into experiences? Or into experience, they should journeys, customer journeys. In how far does that play into each other?
So customer journeys. Well, I mean, can you say probably again, Thomas, what you mean with that?
Now, well, we are talking about experience and experiences, yeah. So which are, well, normally considered different. So with experience being over time, and when used in plural, it's micro experience more or less. Yeah? So in how far does customer journey orchestration, journey mapping, journey analytics, in how far can that be used, or should that be used?
Well, I mean, I think it's still the basement for that. I mean, you somehow have to define that, right? I think you still need to define your customer journeys to, at minimum, identify what our touch points are, right? I mean, how could I define my touch points without defining a journey, and then say, okay, there are my touch points. And by the way, it's also with the invoice, right? That's an outcome I would perceive could come out of defining a customer journey. So I think it's an important element, but assuming a bit where your question is also coming from, Thomas, I mean, the more we go to that segment of one, right, then we would have, if I have 100,000 customers, do I have 100,000 customer journeys, right? That could be that could be a question behind your thinking, yeah. So we still will somehow cluster, right? So for me, the segment of one is more about really using all informations, or those relevant informations that I have. What is relevant, what is not relevant within that customer journey. We will definitely not be able to define one customer journey for each customer. Yeah.
Let's bring that thought a step forward. Is it with segment of one, with that thought, individualization, is it possible at all to define journeys, or would it be better to just talk about outcomes and leave the journey itself, the definition, the finding of the journey, to the customer, because they are doing their journey anyways, as we just figured.
We should probably have an extra session on that, Thomas. I like that idea a lot.
Let's invite Ray Gerber for that one too, and Graham Hill.
I mean, the question, I mean, as you said, when is a customer journey becoming obsolete? But I would still say it's a starting point, right? And then you might come to a point of complexity, right? Where the outcome perspective is crucial. That's for sure true. And I think it also depends on the business. What do I sell? Do I sell luxury goods like Douglas, or do I sell, I don't know, screws and nails, right? Yeah. So what I want to say is that normally, except for marketplaces, also the segment of that web shop is already predefining some kind of a group, right? Also, yeah. Like luxury goods with Douglas, the shop will always look different than the Würth screw shop for screws, right? Also, as one example.
Do businesses get their journeys right currently on average?
I mean, what we saw a lot, I mean, with Corona, obviously, is that customer journeys had dramatically to be rebuilt, right? First of all, because those channels that were used then more were potentially understaffed, either technically, web shops might not have been performant enough. I mean, we had this with customers like with Aldi, for example, when they're using our web shop when they were starting to sell the self-tests beginning of this year, right? We made sure in advance that, I don't know, 500,000 people can order a self-test within 30 minutes, which is normally not the load that their web shop would see on a Sunday afternoon, right? And so on. Yeah, I mean, this is also a topic we shouldn't underestimate. And then, I mean, the different way of how people would consume them. And what we see now, and I think that's also a great discussion, is, okay, how will omni-channel evolve? Do we want to have shops looking like online shops when we go back to, I don't know, a retailer store, right? Is that something that we want to see the most sold products at the front, and then we can do something with our iPhone when we pass by with a camera? So how will those worlds now be mixed up, right? I mean, that's also a trend that is discussed, but I haven't seen it, frankly speaking, yet in stores. I don't know if you guys did, right? But not that much. I mean, you can scan your stuff in supermarkets yourself so that there is no cashier at the end. But come on, is that really making the experience better? That's also a discussion we could have, or is he always using something else?
Yeah. What do you think? I mean, Amazon is reinventing that again. So after they are starting to close down their Amazon Go shops, they are introducing that into Whole Foods, which is kind of an upscale brand as well. So what do you think about that? Is it a way?
If customers are using
it? From ethical problems, that the usual discussion, more automation means less people, means less employment, means less whatever. So does it help in experience?
I think it's an unavoidable trend that this is happening, right? That I'm now looking to my watch, supermarkets close in 17 minutes. And, also, Thomas, those brands that would deliver in big cities, I need a red bottle of wine, and they just bring it to me, right? I mean, I'm not sure if you can really make money out of this if it's for individual products, but I think that overall trend, also with that, what you described with that upscale approach of Amazon, will definitely come, right? And it's once more showing how big that, how many channels we are getting here and how they are getting mixed up, because people want to jump from channel to channel. They want to, they want to start a journey in Amazon and jump to going to the store and get it there and so on. So this is also very interesting, right? To see, yeah. And that's what I meant by the way there's new business models coming again out of technology here, obviously.
What are the drivers? Sorry if I take over here, but what are the drivers then? Is it experience or is it efficiency?
I would say it depends on the product, right? I would say, yeah, that I want to order. I mean, at least for me personally, I mean, I also learned with Corona that I don't have to go to a tool market to get some special batteries, which I would have done 1.5 years ago, 9-volt block battery, right? Stupid stuff that you don't get in any supermarket. I would just order it. Before, I would have been driving to I don't know the English word, to a Baumarkt to get that stuff, right? Which is, from my perspective, stupid and for sure not good for our for pollution as well, right? So there, I would say it's more efficiency, and on the other hand, can give you great experiences. If I want to have a bottle of red wine because you guys were poking me that much within this 1 hour, right? Then it's probably giving me a great experience to have a good glass of wine because my basement is empty, right? Everything, all alcohol is gone. Yeah.
So you had too much interviews which were stressing you, so you had to consume too much wine. But data quality is riding up front in the way of that it makes me concerned. We had the CDPs, we had the different sources, we had the integration. So there is a lot of material coming around into our data centers. How do you manage to get that sorted, the magic of data quality?
You mean SAP as a vendor?
Yeah,
or?
exact.
Well, I mean, what SAP is doing currently, and that was announced also, I think exactly 1 year ago. It, by the way, also led to a recent dip of our share price with the stock, is that that SAP understands that we have to heavily invest more into data centers, into integration, right? And so we decided to go mainly onto a hyperscaler approach, have a standardized layer in between, right? And because I mean, we all know about the story of the rise of the hyperscaler. A data center is not differentiating a vendor like SAP any longer from the market. It's nothing that we have to do our own, right? Like Mercedes is also not building their own tires. Other companies can do this much better, right? So I wouldn't say infrastructure is commodity. We see the evolvement there from how the hyperscalers are doing it, but it's nothing we have to do ourselves. And this is definitely one thing we see. And what I also see a lot with our customers, especially with retailers, is, I mean, there's so much, they are also building so many stuff on Google Cloud or on Amazon Web Services or on AWS already, right? That we anyway have a coexistence here, and they want to get those data together. So it's always for us to offer our customers the ability to choose their hyperscaler and to deploy where they are already. Yeah.
Perfect. Such as the way you answered another question coming up, such as, why is SAP taking the approach to deliver a lot of choice, not only your own data centers, which I embrace, and I find very important, especially in financial and in financial industry and services challenges, and also in medical and healthcare. I would never trust somebody else then, in that case, a secure place like SAP is delivering it to me.
Yeah.
So you're saying Microsoft is not secure?
Yeah.
I guess a bunch of advocates would argue that.
Well,
I guess we're not getting them as a sponsor.
We are not talking this time to Microsoft, but we had these specific dedicated conversation in depth with Michael. So, and I evaluated some further stuff. So it is questionable who will be secure without that you lose that you use an encryption. But from the standpoint I was taking, I understand that, for instance, the cooperation with the very close embracement with Microsoft has getting a bit more less embracing and more choice, so that you would not come into a tricky situation, as cool as I find what Azure is delivering and what there is. The data quality aspect was, from my end, more in how you combine, such as the stuff you get collected from the web, clean it and get it relocated and reused. Because if you do have there some questionable sources or you have double entries, your predictions might get less precise and you will have less fun in the hyper-personalization approach that was behind it.
Somehow it seems we lost.
Yeah, he's
Kai.
looking a bit frozen.
Kai, are you still there? You are looking frozen. Well, as long as Kai is frozen, he probably needs to rejoin in a second.
Data quality, Sven, you are with me.
So what does he say? So different silos, yes. Make sure every engagement is having the same information about a user. The interesting part is how to make sure that the right piece of information is used.
And Sven, I'm with you. Therefore, you need the CDP, but before you use the CDP, you need to clean what you get into the CDP. That is my point. And I was missing the aspect how this is sorted, what types and tools, because I like the way SAP is doing with some of the newly bought products, such as Emarsys and partnerships in other directions, is going for that to do the hyper-personalization opportunity and to make the best of in, let's say, the area of journeys which are for business to business and journeys which are business to consumer and the business to consumer journeys. And I see that there is a lot of thinking on that topic. And we have had some articles on that, which Kai, who is still gone, shared also today with some of the colleagues from Valantic, where I read that and enjoyed very much their perspective on how the marketing cloud, the SAP marketing cloud and the SAP approaches are the best choice, or if you use Emarsys and where you get the best benefit out. I like that very much because this is the commitment on the detail. No, there he is back again.
Kai. Hey,
My
And
girl
he's got-
started watching Netflix or something. I don't know.
oh well, you maybe have the same challenge that Ralph sometimes has.
Yeah.
So
Probably I
Microsoft.
didn't like Ralph's question. Could also be the reason why I dropped off. No, just kidding.
I
You wanted to
I didn't
evade.
thought that you find me such insulting that you kick off.
Would be probably a good reason, yeah, to watch the show if something crazy is happening, right? But that was not the intention.
Well, we can throw you a nice, easy one. In the past 2 years, SAP has made a lot stronger effort in the realm of customer experience. We brought in Bob Stutz and Esteban Kolsky, good friends of the show, all of them.
Yeah.
And things have certainly moved in a different direction. And you, as head of sales for SAP customer experience in EMEA, how has that looked from your point of view? How has that changed your job? How's it going? SAP is a huge organization, and huge organizations are hard to move. I'm just wondering how it's been for you.
Well, I mean, I'm thinking of two aspects here, Marshall. I mean, one is, let's be honest, SAP is mainly perceived as an ERP company, right? We perfectionize processes, right? When Google decided to go with SAP ERP, German newspapers were saying, oh, the German company for business processes was chosen by Google, right? So for me, and that's, by the way, the reason why I'm so active on LinkedIn, it's very, very important to make sure that people understand that CX is an important play for SAP, right? That and obviously we're not a pure CX player, right? But it is still for us the largest line of business that we have right after ERP, right? I mean, it's important to understand, and it is top line is important for our customers, so it also has a strong impact on ERP decisions. We also see this, right, as we discussed before. Now, having Bob joining us from Salesforce also showed that to guys like Bob, this company is interesting. That was my first thing. Okay, why is he coming to SAP, right? And he was pretty clear on this. He said, because I think I can make an impact here. I don't know how deep you discuss this and when having Bob with you, but and that's a major point I like with Bob. I mean, he is a pioneer in that business, and he is still so keen for bringing it forward, right? I mean, I also have had customer meetings with him. You can feel his energy, right? And now, and that's a big difference. What's happening now, right? And what is helping us in sales is that we are just delivering on what is promised. We are not talking about which towers we want to raise down in some years and stuff like this, right? Bob said CDP is a big topic 2 years ago, and he's reinventing that topic. He's building that from scratch, and he's delivering on this. Now he's saying it's working good. We want to have this as a platform. And I mean, it was obviously in his mind, but he's going step by step by step, right? And that's something that I really like, and which is helping us towards our customers as well. I mean, especially in my region, with Germany, with the DACH region, there's almost no customer that I'm talking to for CX that is not an SAP customer. So it's, you know, it's never a one-time stop for me. I always have to have the big picture in mind. Yeah, I always have to deliver on my promise, because if I tell something and it's not working, then they probably don't want to move to S4 with us, right? So there's a much bigger impact for us, yeah. And so that's very important for us. And what we saw now, I mean, you saw the announcement with our Commerce Cloud, with the Gartner rating, probably. I think we're doing pretty good here. Sometimes I feel like we could even be more noisy around our successes and how we do this, because I think the strategy is great, right? What we're doing here, but we're in a good position, right? We can deliver our numbers, and people like working for us. And we all know it's a fight for talents at the moment, yeah? So that's also important. People want to work for companies where they can be successful, yeah?
Very true. Well said.
Where do you see your market competitors in the moment? How do they position them? And as you made the statement that CRM CX is so important for you, how do you compete in some of the areas with your friendly admirers?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends. I mean, especially in the CRM market, right? It's often, I wouldn't say it's a commodity pitch, right? But also the evaluation of systems of customers rather standardized, RFI, RFP driven, and so on, right? So this is an aggressive fight against all those competitors, you know, smaller ones, very bigger ones. So this is, and there, I would say, when we normally, when we lose, right, and we also lose, obviously, right, it's normally not around features and functions, right? It's really more about the bigger picture and whether the customer believes that for the next years it's smart to go with us. That's often more what we would then get as a feedback. But you guys know it's hard to get a fair feedback after you lost the deal, right? It's never a nice talk also for the customers, and nothing that is really helping them. But that's at least my perception, right? And that's, on the other hand, something that we as SAP can influence, as I said, with awareness, how we position ourselves, how we discuss strategy. Where we, at the moment, where I really feel that we are ahead of the pack is if it comes to, and we saw the first RFIs here, but also conversations around this customer experience platform game. And that's a combination of marketing automation, hyper-personalization, omni-channel experience, and CRM and sales. And a lot of customers that are big, that are having different brands that they want to bring together, big retailers that are having store concepts, store-in-store concepts, online concepts. For them, it's crucial to do cross-sell, to bring that together, right? And often those I would also see as the early adapters and drivers. And there we are having customer situation where we are clearly getting the feedback, your platform is different. It's a real CDP. You can do more than only marketing automation, right? And this is something that really helps us, yeah, and where we see that our strategy is playing out. Yeah.
That's cool. And I believe that you made a very important statement for yourself, such as you need the 9-volt block battery. And one of the things we touched during the prep call, or the preparation on my end, is that I found your CX and sustainability chart, and I found it most interesting. Could you elaborate a bit on how important CX and sustainability these days come together, especially when we are more or less not quite sure when we go for the personal shopping approach, and that we spend some more in the hybrid mode, such as click and collect? How will this work out?
Well, I mean, two dimensions. I mean, we as a vendor, but we see this for all big tech players. Microsoft is doing it. All the big ones are doing it. We have our agenda to be carbon neutral, obviously, right? That's something that SAP is driving. We see this with our car fleets. We see this with how we should decide how we travel, whether plane or train and so on. So that's, I would say, something that is on top of mind for tech companies, not only for tech companies. If it comes to consumers, right, to our customers, yeah, I mean, I think it's not only in the commerce or in the customer experience world, it is like everywhere. Everyone says, yes, that's important for me, but how important is the topic already to pay more for something, right, to really change behavior? And there I would say also from my personal understanding, there is a way to go. I think the good thing now is, and I mean, we have some examples in Germany, let's say Grünwalder, for example, that were a meat producer, and now they do everything veggie, right? And the stuff is great. So we have examples that you can do business, that you can do money with that approach, right? That there is, because those consumers that are sensitive for sustainability in different angles, whether it is traveling, whether it is consuming, whether it is vegetarian, and so on and so forth, they are also willing to pay more, right? And I think that is obvious to all of us. Yeah? The interesting part really is how this will, what this means for platforms, how you position yourselves, right? I mean, we have campaigns ongoing, for example, with fashion production companies, how every shirt could have a digital tag that the end consumer can check himself whether it was produced sustainable or not, right? I mean, they are topics that could become a differentiator and that are linked to technology, that you see the supply chain end to end. And then you see again with hyper-personalization, the interdependency of those topics, right? How can you get that proof point if you're not able to have that information being combined with your commerce journey?
Okay, I think that sounds like the perfect word towards the Sunday. Wort zum Sonntag. Whoever knows this old franchise, ZDF, I think it was. We are good past our hour. Thanks a lot for the lots of insight that you provided, Kai, and mindful of your time. We do not want to keep you away too much from your wine as we poked you a lot. Thanks also for the audience. There was quite an audience actually this time. So thanks a lot. See you next week, everybody. And we now end the broadcast. I now end the broadcast, and well,
Great conversation. Bye-bye.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate it. It wasn't